Part 44. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 433. Lu Zhen was drenched in cold sweat. He knelt down and called out to the emperor. Seeing that the emperor was silent, he could only grit his teeth and say, "It is said in the old Tang book. The wife, Li, is also the wife of the country. Every time she enters the court, the two wives will receive gifts together." Anlu Mountain Deeds volume also has, Tianbao, was added for 6 years, and Mrs Yushi was added, and the two wives were granted the Tang family and Duan family name. And for Mrs Guo. Lord Lu, I'm asking how to explain the definition of a flat wife in the law of the Great Zhou, not asking who has married a flat wife in history. Mu Yangling interrupted him, and said with a half smile, "I don't know how Master Lu passed the imperial examination. Such an irrelevant answer. It is really a great fortune to be able to pass the imperial examination." Everyone laughed, and seeing Lu Zhen's face flushed, Mu Yangling asked, "It seems that although Master Lu married a flat wife, he doesn't quite understand the definition of a flat wife in the law of the Great Zhou. What about the definition? Master Lu should know this, right?" Resentment flashed in Lu Zhen's eyes, but he couldn't speak, because it would be a crime to speak up. Mu Yangling stopped chasing and beating him forcefully, and it would not do her much good to break up with Lu Zhen any longer, so she turned her head to look at the first position, and said respectfully, "Master Chen, you are very knowledgeable. I don't know you clear things up for everyone." Chen Fang, Minister of the Ministry of Rights, used to be the Minister of the Ministry of Punishment. He was transferred from the Ministry of Punishment to the Ministry of Rights because of his age. He heard this and said with a smile, "There are no equal wives in the law of the Great Zhou, and wives are equal to their husbands. From the Son of Heaven to the common people, their righteousness is the same." Then, can Master Chen tell me the origin of the term Ping wife? Chen Fang shook his head and said, "Equal wife is just a name used by businessmen to coax outsiders. From the Qin and Han dynasties to the Great Zhou dynasty, the law stipulated that no wife should be remarried, otherwise it would be a violation of the law." It seems that the speeches of the Great Zhou dynasty were really open. In front of the emperor, Chen Fang was not afraid to refute the emperor with facts and theories, and reminded him that some things were unreasonable. Mu Yangling felt relieved, and felt that there was nothing wrong with living in Dazhu. At least it was much better than the Ming and Qing dynasties in his previous life. Mu Yangling knelt down before facing the emperor again, and said, "Your Majesty, according to Mr. Chen's explanation, it is illegal for Mr. Lu to have a wife and marry an ordinary wife. Then why can a person who breaks the law still be an official in the court and not be punished?" Mu Yangling obviously wanted to divert the disaster to the east and expose this matter to the past. Everyone looked at Lu Zhen sympathetically. When the emperor mentioned Ping wife, he shouldn't have jumped out. They just didn't know that the Mu family would be there again. What to do? Answer. Before the emperor could say anything, the queen slapped the table angrily, and said angrily, "Wives and concubines should not be messed up. This is an old saying. Although the officials in the Tang dynasty were not taboo, in my Zhou dynasty, there has never been such a disregard for the law. Your Majesty, I request that Lu Shilang be dealt with according to law." The emperor lowered his head and stared at Qi Heiran and Mu Yangling for a while, then said slowly, "Mu Shi, go to the east." Everyone looked at Qi Heiran and Mu Yangling in astonishment. Why did the topic change? The queen was also taken aback, and turned to look at the two kneeling below. Mu Yangling's face turned red, and he moved a little to the east. The emperor stared at their sleeves for a long time, and finally confirmed what he was thinking. These two were holding hands all the time. The emperor, who was originally furious, was in a better mood. He asked, "Qi Iking, I ask you, did you really make such a promise to Mrs Mu? Look up and answer me." The ministers didn't know what the emperor was getting into. Shouldn't they go down the ladder handed over by the empress at this time? Why did you go back to the first question? Chi Heiran raised his head and returned seriously, back to the emperor. I did promise you. His face was slightly red, but he still explained seriously, I and Mu grew up together. She saved her life. Oh? How did she save you? The emperor asked curiously. Naturally, Chi Heiran wouldn't talk about his injuries and what happened on the battlefield. He just said, when I was young and ignorant, I and my cousin went to Zhou mansion to find my eldest brother, but they were chased and ran into the forest. At that time, we not only there is no food, and I am still lost in the mountains. If we hadn't met her, our two cousins would have died in the mountains and become relatives with bones. In the past 5 or 6 years, we have been together day and night, but it can also be regarded as a good friend. When I am in trouble, she will help me, and when she is in trouble, I will also help her. The marriage between me and her was agreed in the morning. It was originally said that she would not marry until she was 16, but the eldest brother needs to be happy. I just mentioned it, and she agreed, so. Chi Heiran's face turned redder, and his voice was low, but he still said clearly, I swear, she will be the only one in my life, let alone ordinary. I don't want a wife, even a concubine or a housemaid. If I break this promise, I have to make peace with her. Everyone's eyes widened, and the emperor was also slightly surprised. He laughed and said, you don't suffer from this promise at all. You can marry another one after you and Li, but it will be difficult for her to marry again. What kind of vow is this? Chi Heiran blushed and said, Your Majesty, you haven't finished listening. We are divorced, the child belongs to her, and I can change my surname. All my property also belongs to her. From now on, whether I marry a wife and have children, or be alone, 2/3 of the salary and property earned will be given to her, and if she is down and out, she must also be guaranteed a certain amount of alimony and child support every year. In short, there are many regulations. The emperor was stunned. Could it be possible that you still sign the contract? Chi Heiran nodded as it should. Of course, if there is no contract, what if we forget it in the future? The emperor said thoughtfully, the price is indeed a bit high, and it is quite real, but property can be faked, but it is not good to have blood leaking out. Your Majesty, Chi Heiran interrupted him unhappily, and said, the most important thing is that I want to make peace with Mrs. Mu. How could I make peace with her? The emperor looked at Chi Heiran's staring eyes, and believed that he rejected him, probably not because he was the matchmaker he said, nor because the object was Qin Xiang's daughter, but because of such an oath, or because he was newly married. The emperor said affirmatively, I forgot, you are newly married now, after 2 or 3 years, I'm afraid you won't think so. Chi Heiran said affirmatively, in another 20 or 30 years, I will still be the same. The emperor looked at the swearing Chi Heiran, and just smiled. He had said such love words before, but now all of them disappeared. Even now, he would still say such love words, but the target was different. The people below only smiled slightly, and like the emperor, they all felt that Chi Heiran was a young man with deep love, that the Mu family was kind to him, and that he was newly married, so they could swear so swearingly, but it will always change in the future. Everyone goes through this stage. Women are a little envious of Mu Yangling, even if they know that Chi Heiran's affection is temporary. Maybe it won't be long, half a year, 1 year, or 2 years, Chi Heiran's back house will come in, but at this time Chi Heiran is willing to do it for her, and to stand up and reject this marriage is enviable in their eyes. At least they will have such good memories in the future, right? The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 434. The emperor shifted his gaze to Mu Yangling, and asked, Mr. Mu, if I insist on letting Chi Heiran marry a flat wife, what should you do? Mu Yangling looked up at the emperor, and the sense of crisis in her bones told her that it was best to tell the truth, otherwise the emperor might give a flat wife willfully. So what if it's against the law? This is a society ruled by men, not to mention that there are several famous examples from the Tang dynasty. Mu Yangling smiled and said, if the emperor really bestows a flat wife, then of course I can only accept it, but how we live in the future is our own business. Oh? Then what are you going to do? It's very simple. Divide the house into two, and Ping's wife lives on one side alone. Chi Heiran doesn't go to meet her, let alone sleep with her and have a baby. If she is honest, we can live in peace. The emperor frowned, this is so unfair to that woman, won't your conscience be disturbed? Mu Yangling shook his head, no, it's not me and Chi Heiran who caused her such a tragedy, we have already rejected it. That is to say, the culprit is the emperor. The emperor looked at her speechlessly. Was he really not afraid that he would kill her when he said this in front of him, or was he deliberately mocking him like this? Then what if Chi Heiran has a relationship with her? The emperor asked maliciously. Who knew that Mu Yangling's face was more cheerful? That would be easier. I will go to the Yamen to sue Chi Heiran first, and then reconcile with him and take all the property away. Seeing the emperor's astonishment, Mu Yangling he smiled and explained, Your Majesty, it's hard to find four-legged toads in this world, but men with two legs abound. I have money and looks, so what kind of man can't I find? Since you are already ruthless, why should I stay? Are you hurting? In the end, it's your own heart that hurts. Before the emperor expressed his shocking remarks, Chi Heiran glared at Mu Yangling angrily, and shouted, Don't even think about it. When did the Lord say he would go to sleep with another woman? Don't blame the Lord, wife Ping I wouldn't marry either, he said angrily. I would have known, if I had known, I would not have signed the death contract. Mu Yangling comforted him very gently, of course I know you won't. Isn't this an analogy? The emperor asked me, otherwise I wouldn't make this assumption. Then everyone saw that Chi Heiran, who was still furious, was calmed down, and he knelt beside her obediently. Everyone suddenly realized that it turned out to be a fear of guilt. Fan Zijian almost wanted to hide his face and leave. He knew that it would not be good to marry Qin Xiang's daughter as an ordinary wife, but there was no need to make the drama of inner fear so real, right? It's better to marry Qin Xiang's daughter. Satisfied, the emperor concluded, so your refusal to marry is not because the marriage is illegal or unethical, but because you are jealous, Mrs. Mu, aren't you? Mu Yangling stared blankly at the emperor, so the ultimate responsibility fell back to her? Chi Heiran immediately said, No, your majesty, the Mu family is actually very virtuous, even if she asks me to marry a common wife, I will definitely not marry her, nor will I accept a concubine. Really, it's not her problem. The emperor gave him a contemptuous look, then turned to look at Mu Yangling, and asked, Mrs. Mu, I'm asking you something. Mu Yangling thought about it seriously, and said, Your Majesty, it makes sense for you to say that, but I think the most fundamental reason is that I love my husband. Everyone was stunned for a moment, thinking that this woman was so bold that the emperor felt ashamed for her in front of so many people's confession. Chi Heiran grinned, and looked at Mu Yangling cheerfully. Mu Yangling continued, Because I love him, I can't tolerate this. If I marry a stranger, the emperor will give him a flat wife casually. I'm afraid I won't even blink. As long as I'm still the regular wife just fine. The emperor murmured, Others can. Mu Yangling nodded, Yes, it's fine if I don't like him. If there is no love, then no matter how many girls he is with, I won't be sad or angry. As long as my status is guaranteed, I can turn a blind eye. Get along with everyone with one eye, but Chi Heiran can't do that. I'd rather be at peace with him than see him for the rest of my life, and don't live with him under the same roof and watch him go see other women. Make love with other women. Chi Heiran hurriedly said in a low voice, Except for you, I will not go to see other women, nor will I have sex with other women. The emperor, who was about to speak angrily, smashed down a wine glass and said angrily, "Shut up, I'm talking to Mrs. Mu." The princes, concubines, and ministers under the palace banquet are already dumbfounded. Even the empress, who has been trying to stop them from continuing, has given up at this time. It doesn't matter. If you lose face, you can lose face. Anyway, they are the royal family, and most of them talk in private. Don't they dare to be? Can't you make fun of them in their faces? After the emperor finished smashing people, he asked, "Then if I continue to pressurize Chi Heiran and his wife to perform Zhou Gong's rituals with his wife, what should you do?" "This was forced by me, not Chi Heiran voluntarily. Why didn't you forgive him?" Mu Yangling curled his lips and asked, "Your Majesty, would you care about such a boring thing?" The emperor choked, and insisted on asking, "I asked you something, answer it." Mu Yangling broke the jar and said, "It's okay, I will go to the new house with him, the three of us count the stars together for a night. If you still come, we will continue to count the stars." Someone in the arena burst out laughing with a puchi, and then intermittent low laughter rang out in the banquet. The emperor probably also felt embarrassed, waved his hand and said, "Okay, you two step back, since Mrs. Mu is jealous, let's do the job of flattening the wife." Mu Yangling grabbed Chi Heiran, who wanted to distinguish. Although he was blamed, he finally managed to get over the crisis. When will he not refund this time? The two returned to their seats and sat down. Chi Heiran squeezed Mu Yangling's hand and found that her palms were sweaty. He was stunned for a moment, and then his heart ached. He thought she was so brave, but it turned out to be a paper tiger. The palace banquet in front continued, but at this time no one was in the mood to watch the song and dance performance in the middle. The emperor lowered his head and wondered what he was thinking. Others were consuming the words of Chi Heiran and Mu Yangling. Those who were less thoughtful only felt that their relationship was precious, those who were righteous thought that Chi Heiran was too fearful of guilt, and those who were more thoughtful were all kinds of thoughts, but they all agreed to go. Analyze the words, actions, and potential meanings of the two persons. Qin Xiang, who had been unnoticed all this time, put down the wine glass in his hand. A cold light flashed in his eyes, the body of the glass was cracked. He didn't want to marry his daughter to Chi Heiran, but it didn't mean he allowed Chi Heiran to refuse. And Lu Zhen, who was kneeling in the corner, kept kneeling and was never allowed to get up. His heart was in a turmoil. Since the emperor put the responsibility on Mu Yangling, there should be nothing wrong with him, right? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 435. After leaving the palace gate, Mu Yangling sent Li Jinghua to the carriage, turned around and saw Qi Feng staring at her with a livid face. Mu Yangling raised his eyebrows and looked straight at him. You. Qi Feng was so angry that he heard Chi Heiran say quietly behind him, "Uncle, your carriage is here." Qi Feng's anger was instantly punctured. He looked around, only to realize that everyone was looking at this side. He could only throw up his sleeves and get into the carriage, and discuss with them when he got back. Xiaoshi pulled Chi Heiran worriedly, hesitated for a while and said, "Why don't you and your wife come to live with me for 2 days?" Chi Heiran refused, "Auntie, I won't bother you when it's Chinese New Year." "Don't worry, I'm fine." Fan Siwen frowned and said, "You can decide for yourself, but you also care about the Mu family. You have to teach them what to say and what not to say. After all, this is the capital city, not Xinzhou Prefecture." Fan Zijin sneered and said, "I don't think the siblings have said something that shouldn't be said." When Fan Siwen saw his son's mocking eyes, he immediately got angry, glared at him, shook his sleeves and left. Xiaoshi hesitated for a moment, but still pulled his son, "Why do you always make your father angry when it's Chinese New Year?" Go and apologize. Fan Zijin waved his hand indifferently and said, Mother, let's go first, I'll talk to Heiran. Seeing her husband's carriage leaving quickly, Xia could only instruct her son to catch up. Fan Zijin looked at his mother's back, turned his head and said, it would be great if my mother had half the vigor of Aling. Qi Heiran grinned and said proudly, how many people in this world can compare to Aling? Fan Zijin curled his lips, but you really should restrain Aling. This time he is in a good mood to let her go. If she continues to talk to the superior like this next time, I'm afraid it will cause disaster. Qi Heiran's expression darkened, she is helping me prevent disaster. Fan Zijin didn't want to see him so emotional again, and whispered in his ear when he turned around, go to the horse race in the 3rd grade of junior high school, remember to let her hide her clumsiness, her ability is our trump card. Qi Heiran nodded. It is not difficult to find out about Mu Yangling. He was born in a hunter's family. He went hunting with his father in the mountains since he was a child. He is stronger than ordinary people, can ride horses, and is good at archery. But the strength is much stronger than ordinary people, except for Qi Heiran and others, even Mu Yangling's mother Shu Wanyang, and Ziyuheng who often follows her don't know the details, and there is room for how good the archery is. Rabbits are good at archery, and hunting a tiger is also good at archery. This degree must be carefully grasped. Qi Heiran returned to Mu Yangling, saw her tense face, thought she was worried about what her father said just now, so he took her hand and said, don't worry, with me here, he dare not do anything to you. Holding hands, he realized that her hands were icy cold. Qi Heiran frowned slightly, hugged her, and groped her body, only to find that her entire back was wet with sweat. He was angry and distressed at the same time, and cursed, I thought how courageous you are, to be frightened like this, let's see if you dare to show off in the future. As he spoke, he searched all the handkerchiefs on her body to help her wipe the sweat off her back. Mu Yangling leaned limply in his arms, and then felt fear, and whispered in his ear, it is said that a companion is like a companion. Tiger, today I have experienced it once. Qi Heiran hugged her distressedly, and said, don't be like this in the future, he can't make an imperial edict, but I can still refuse his verbal request, the big deal is that the official will be slapped. Won't he kill you? Mu Yangling asked curiously. Qi Heiran shook his head, probably not. Emperor Jinjian seldom killed ministers. There was no case at that time, and Xu Guang's crime of mortal death was lightly punished by him. He was just exiled. He was pardoned and returned 2 years ago. He won't do anything to me if he argues verbally, but the eldest brother may be a bit difficult to deal with. So they are cheating, brother? Mu Yangling smiled in his arms, and Qi Heiran nodded her nose and said, brother would rather be tricked by me than marry Qin Xiang's daughter. It is not a good thing to have a relationship with Qin Xiang. By the way, will we offend Prime Minister Qin if we refuse the marriage on the spot today? Qi Heiran curled his lips indifferently and said, unless I accept it, we will offend him no matter what we do. No, even if I accept it, I'm afraid we will still offend him. We can't fathom his treacherous thoughts, so we just have to do our job. Didn't you say that you would rather offend a gentleman than a villain? Qi Heiran said domineeringly, whether you are a gentleman or a villain, I am not afraid. Mu Yangling patted his chest with a smile, and praised, you are doing well. The mood of the two of them swept away the gloom during the palace banquet, but the good mood only lasted until they got off the carriage. Qi Feng, who arrived early, was waiting for them in the yard. As soon as they got off the carriage, they met Qi Feng's gloomy eyes. Qi Heiran helped Mu Yangling down indifferently, and bid farewell to Qi Feng patiently. Qi Feng said coldly, you come to the study with me. Qi Heiran was impatient, the clothes on Aling's back were wet, he had to take a bath and change clothes in such a cold day, otherwise he might get sick even if he was in good health. How could he have time to deal with Qi Feng? So Chi Heiran said very bluntly, "Father, if there is nothing important, I will take Aling back first. She is not in good health, and it got worse when she was blown by the wind today. Let's talk about it tomorrow if you have anything to do." Nyze, Chi Feng couldn't help stomping his foot and pointing at his nose, cursing, "What are you doing protecting such a jealous woman? Hurry up and give me a break," and offended the Emperor, Prime Minister Qin and Master Lu in one night over and over again. "I have said that marrying a wife should be a good one. You and your elder brother seem to be afraid that I will harm you, one by one marrying wives in places where the birds don't shit. Divorce her, divorce her." Li Jinghua, who was standing on the sidelines and listening to the training honestly, couldn't help but look serious. "Doesn't the bird shit? When was the Guanzhong area described in this way?" Li Jinghua didn't care about his father-in-law's face, but Mu Yangling, who was leaning next to Chi Heiran, said bluntly, "This is the first time my daughter-in-law has heard what my father-in-law said. It turns out that the ancient capital of Chang'an, which has always been a place of contention among officials, has actually it's a place where birds don't shit." Chi Heiran irritatedly said, "Father, although I don't study much, I also know that the Guanzhong area was once a prosperous place. You may have been an official for a long time. Go back and read some history books. I will go back with Aling first." Chi Heiran turned his head and told Wen Kui, "Bring your grandma back, so I can take care of you." Wen Kui glanced at Chi Feng, who had an ugly face, responded, stepped forward to support Li Jinghua, and left. Chi Heiran ignored the furious Chi Feng, picked up Mu Yangling and went back to his yard, leaving Chi Feng roaring like a trapped animal. "Nizai, Nizai, I want. I've been asking for it for a long time, but I don't know what to do with Chi Heiran. If it was before, he could still arrest his son and beat him up, cut off his monthly money, or lock him up. But now Chi Heiran is completely out of his control, among other things, with the 15 nursing homes living in the outer courtyard. With them, can he beat Chi Heiran? Can he catch him? Cut off money?" As early as 5 years ago, Chi Heiran didn't use his money anymore, and Chi Feng was a little depressed. It wasn't until then that he really felt that his two sons had completely broken free from his control. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 436. Chi Heiran carried Mu Yangling all the way back to the yard, and ordered his servants to go to the kitchen to ask for hot water while walking. In winter, the hot water in the kitchen is always prepared, so shortly after Chi Heiran carried him back, the hot water came. Chi Heiran said, "Hurry up and take a shower and change your clothes." Although Chi Heiran moved quickly enough, Mu Yangling was still sick the next day and was sneezing all day long, so Chi Heiran could only call for a doctor. Chi Feng sent someone to call Chi Heiran over. Chi Heiran was accompanying the doctor, and said impatiently, "Just say that the master has something to do. If the master has something to do, just ask the servants to do it." The girl who came to invite someone didn't dare to say much, and went back to answer in fear. Chi Feng jumped into a rage in the study and scolded Chi Heiran. When Fei Bai sent the doctor out, he didn't know whether it was by accident or on purpose. He led the doctor to the path close to the study room, and the doctor walked all the way out with Chi Feng's swearing voice. So, less than half a day after the doctor left, many people who were staring at Chi's mansion got the latest news. Chi Heiran's youngest daughter-in-law, Mrs. Mu, fell ill from fright. It seems that although she was very bold at the palace banquet, she was actually not very courageous, and she was still very awe-inspiring. Only then did he have the courage to come out and resist. The news of Chi Feng scolding Chi Heiran and forcing Chi Heiran to divorce his wife also spread, which further confirmed the rumors of his partiality. Chi Heiran and his wife finally suppressed the marriage, so why should he make trouble at this time? Is Qin Xiang's daughter so easy to marry? But at this moment, the emperor issued an order to order Lu Zhen to seize his official position, and ordered the Linen government office to try the fact that he had a wife and remarried. Everyone knew that the turmoil of Qi Heiran and his wife's refusal to marry was over, and the one who suffered was Lu Zhen. Sure enough, he shouldn't have stood out at the palace banquet, and because of a single sentence, Mu Yangling misfortune Shuidong and caused trouble for himself. Mu Yangling doesn't care about other things now and concentrates on recuperating from her illness. She usually seldom gets sick, but this time her illness is violent. She just sneezed on the first day, and began to feel dizzy at night. On the second day, she not only developed a low-grade fever but also coughed. Qi Heiran felt as if he was facing a formidable enemy, thinking that someone had prescribed medicine to her. He was so frightened that he dared not go outside to ask a doctor, but asked Fan Zijian to find a prescription to prescribe the right medicine, checked the medicinal materials again and again, and personally guarded the medicine stove to boil the medicine before he was relieved. Mu Yangling was sick and drowsy and didn't know it, but Qi Heiran lost a lot of weight after 3 days, and his affection was also seen by everyone. Respect and fear a lot. Mu Yangling didn't know it at all. After taking the medicine, she covered the quilt all night and sweated all over her body. Then she felt better. She opened her eyes and looked at Qi Heiran, who was sleeping beside her, and touched it with her fingers. Touching his cheek, he realized that he was very thin, and felt distressed immediately. As soon as Qi Heiran opened his eyes, he met Mu Yangling's eyes full of tenderness. Qi Heiran subconsciously grinned, then widened his eyes, got up and touched her forehead and said, "The fever is gone, is it better?" Mu Yangling nodded, "I feel lighter, but I still have a little cough, and I should be fine after taking medicine for 2 days." Mu Yangling touched his face and said, "You've lost so much weight, and people get fat during Chinese New Year." Qi Heiran smiled indifferently, pulled up the quilt and covered her. "Do you want to sleep a little longer? It's still early." Mu Yangling glanced outside, shook his head, "Get up, I'm hungry." Qi Heiran immediately ordered someone to bring the millet porridge. "Eat some light food first, and I will take you out to eat delicious food when you recover from illness." Seeing Qi Heiran coaxing Mu Yangling like a child, Li Shun and the others looked at each other and smiled, and quietly left. After eating and drinking enough, Mu Yangling became alive again. Although she still coughed from time to time, she could tell from her complexion that her illness was almost over. Qi Heiran was completely relieved, and then realized that he was also very hungry. His chest was almost sticking to his back, so when eating breakfast, Qi Heiran almost wiped all the food on the table. Qi Feng endured it, or unable to hold back, he said, "Your daughter-in-law is missing on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. Yesterday, she was away from relatives on the second day of the New Year, and the people who came didn't see her. Today you take her to meet your uncles and aunts bar." Qi Heiran stuffed the last bite of steamed buns into his mouth, and said indifferently, "Uncle, aunt, and the others are in Fuzhou. When did you return to Beijing?" Qi Shaosheng frowned and said, "Second brother, my father is talking about my uncle, and now my uncle is also your uncle. Out of emotion and reason, you should have visited yesterday, but yesterday you had to take care of your younger siblings and couldn't get away. Today younger siblings, now that it's done, why don't you go to Wu's house?" Qi Heiran curled his lips and said, "Who said Wu Miao is my uncle? My uncle's surname is Zhu. That's enough. I'm full. Today I'm going to visit my aunt and ask the warehouse to prepare gifts for New Year's greetings." He glanced over Qi Shaosheng and said, "Oh, my aunt definitely doesn't like to see the second brother and the third brother, so you better not go." Qi Shaitai dropped his chopsticks and shouted, "Who cares about it? If you don't go, you won't go." Mrs. Wu also dropped her chopsticks angrily, and cried, "Master, what does Heiran mean by that? I've straightened it up a long time ago, so Xiu Yuan won't talk about it. It's reasonable for him not to go to Wu's house if he's not at home. If there is no Wu family, I just pretend I can't see it, but Heiran is clearly in the capital, but he never walks away from relatives of the Wu family. Has my stepmother been righted?" Li Jinghua said with a smile, my wife misunderstood my fourth uncle. Didn't the second and third uncles go to the Wu family? It's normal for relatives to separate. Besides, it's not the fourth uncle who decides whether to correct the righteousness or not. What the family says is right, your name is recorded in the genealogy, who dares you not to correct it? Even if the Yamen came to check, we would be justified. Mrs. Wu cried for a while, and the Yamen came to check, okay. Qi Feng suppressed his anger, glanced at Wu Shi, and said, don't cry. He looked up at Qi Heiran and the three of them, waved his hand and said, go if you want to go. Qi Heiran raised his eyebrows in surprise, thinking that there was going to be another quarrel, but he didn't expect to let it go so easily, but he never liked to think too much, so he pulled Mu Yangling and left with Li Jinghua. Mu Yangling hesitated, shall I go too? After all, she is sick. It seems that it is not a good time to pay New Year's greetings, right? Qi Heiran said indifferently, Auntie's place is much more comfortable. When we go there, we will go for a horse race. I will introduce my former friends to you. Sister-in-law, you can stay with your aunt when the time comes, there are many people there, we will come back to pick you up in the afternoon, Qi Heiran said. Li Jinghua smiled and said, just go and play, it's not like I don't know how to come back. Qi Heiran has been taking care of Mu Yangling for the past few days, she is not idle, she has already talked to several families in the clan, and going to Fan's house this time is also an opportunity to socialize. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 437. Chen Qian looked curiously at Mu Yangling, who was wearing riding clothes, gave Qi Heiran an elbow, and asked in a low voice, is she really strong? The person looks so petite, and his face is still a little pale. Is it really as powerful as Fan Zijin said, can lift a big rock? Qi Heiran nodded proudly, of course, but she is sick now and cannot mount a horse, nor can she be tired. Next time, I will take her out to hunt with you. Chen Qian asked strangely, then why did you bring her out, shouldn't you lie down at home when you are sick? It's too boring at home. I'll take her out to relax. Once she's in a good mood, she'll recover sooner. Tell your wife about it. You can't bully her. Chen Qian looked at Qi Heiran like a monster for a while, then turned to Fan Zijin and said, now I believe that what he said at the palace banquet is the truth. He originally thought that those love words were an excuse for him to refuse the marriage, but now it seems that this kid has really played sex. Fan Zijin didn't comment on this, but jumped onto the horse and said, let's go, we're here to hunt, not chat. Chen Qian pouted, since when did you become so keen on hunting, but he still took his horse and went. If you don't want to acidify your teeth, just keep it, but if you don't want to hunt and drink tea, I will definitely welcome it. Impossible, I came here today for hunting. It's a rare sunny day, when can't I drink tea? Chen Qian turned his head and was about to call Qi Heiran, when he saw him wrap Mu Yangling in a cloak. After a few more instructions, he ran over to lead his horse. Chen Qian's teeth were indeed gritty. If he did such a thing, he would be romantic and suave. If Fan Zijin did it, he could barely be regarded as a tender scholar. Qi Heiran, who always speaks and roars, does it? Chen Qian wants to poke his eyes. Chen Shu said with a smile, the fourth son is really kind to you. Mu Yangling lowered his head and smiled slightly, young Master Chen is also very kind to you. Chen Shusi just smiled, her husband was indeed kind to her, but compared to Qi Heiran's treatment of Mu Yangling, it was still far behind. There were quite a few people who came to hunt this time, most of them brought their wives with them, and they all wore riding clothes, and those who were familiar with Chen Shu called her to go horse racing together. Those people gave Mu Yangling a strange look, just smiled, and didn't greet her. As soon as Qi Heiran came, everyone knew about her illness. Qi Heiran also asked everyone to take care of her, so naturally he would not ask her to ride a horse. If the wind blows and the disease becomes more serious, whose fault will it be? Chen Shuxi was a little hesitant. She wanted to go too, but Chi Heiran had specially taken care of her and asked her to take care of her more, even her husband had asked her to. Mu Yangling said with a smile, "Sister Shu, let's go and play. I'll walk around here. This is the first time I've come to Anfu. Our place is usually covered with heavy snow now, and it's rare to see it so green in winter tree." Chen Shu got up and said with a smile, "Then you play around here first, next time I will take you to protect the country. The plum blossoms there are very good. Every year after the 15th day, many people go to protect the country to pray for blessings visiting the garden, so the Hyogyo temple has controlled the number of people, and now you have to be happy to go in, and I happen to have an appointment with several sisters to go together." Mu Yangling smiled and expressed his gratitude. Chen Shuxi left with everyone to go horse racing. Mu Yangling sat in the base camp dangling her legs and waited for everyone to return. She looked around curiously. She had been to the former site of Linen City in her previous life, where there was only a city wall and some broken things, which was completely different from the prosperous and extravagant Linen City today. Looking at the bustling city below the mountain, Mu Yangling wondered how long this kind of stability and prosperity could last. Chi Heiran said that Longxing Mansion, not far from Linen City, was still in rebellion, and refugees gathered in the city. Those who died, the victims of the disaster, have not yet joined the rebels, but if the imperial court does not provide disaster relief, this situation will break down sooner or later, and this place is so close to Longxing Mansion, can it really be safe and sound? Mu Yangling sighed slightly, but even if the imperial court wants to rescue the disaster, it is probably intentional but powerless, right? The household department has no money. Therefore, the common people can rely on the country, but the most important thing is to rely on themselves. If every family has surplus food, even if there are major natural and man-made disasters in the future, they will not be destitute all at once, and they will not even be able to fill their stomachs. Mu Yangling paddled the soil with his feet, feeling a little depressed. In just 2 hours, Chi Heiran carried a deer out with someone excited. "Aling, look, we shot it." Mu Yangling smiled, sat on the shaft of the car and swayed his legs and said, "It's really fat, let's have some barbecue." "Even if you eat barbecue, you won't be able to eat it. Don't be greedy. I'll take you to vegetarian food tonight." Chen Qian's eyes widened. "Are you kidding? Why don't you eat vegetarian food with such good venison here?" Mu Yangling was a little touched. Chi Heiran is a carnivore like her, and these 2 days may be to avoid her greed, eating vegetarian. Mu Yangling looked at Chi Heiran with a smile and said, "I don't eat venison, but I can roast it for you, and put a small pot on the side to cook some porridge, it's also delicious." Li Chun immediately said, "Fourth son, we brought some mushrooms and cabbage over here, they can be chopped up and made into vegetable porridge, fourth grandma likes it very much." Chi Heiran hasn't been with his friends for a long time, and he really wants to eat venison, so he immediately agreed. Mu Yangling tied on the cloak and led someone to prepare the seasoning. Chi Heiran said proudly, "The venison roasted by Aling is very delicious, you will know it after eating it." Mu Yangling divided 3 piles of fire, and started roasting the whole deer on the big rack, used 1 pile to cook porridge, and another pile to boil broth. Mu Yangling smeared the prepared ingredients on the venison and rolled it slowly. The servant who wanted to help turn it over was a little surprised when she saw that she could turn the whole deer with one hand, and then said back down. The scent soon dissipated. Chen Qian and the others, who were not too hungry at first, couldn't help but feel greedy, and they always looked over there. At this time, the female relatives who went out to race horses also came back, and everyone ran over busily when they smelled the fragrance. "Oh, I didn't expect that Sister Mu has such a skill. It's so delicious, don't talk about others, even I'm hungry." In the commotion, Everyone got closer. Mu Yangling beckoned someone to bring honey, and said, I don't know what flavor you like, but if you spread a thin layer of honey and bake it, it's called honey, it's delicious. Everyone came out with short knives and cut themselves to eat. Chi Heiran was the fastest, and from time to time helped Fan Zijian cut a few pieces of meat. The speed was the fastest among them. Chen Qian was so annoyed that he pressed him and punched him several times. Mu Yangling just sat there smiling and watching everyone laughing, and the female relatives who came with him were slightly surprised. You must know that the rumors they heard were not the same. They all said that Mu Yangling was very tough and dared to say jealousy at the palace banquet. But now the girl with the smile on the corner of her mouth is obviously an introverted little girl. After getting along with her all day, her personality is not hard at all, but rather soft. Everyone listens to everything with a smile, and is obedient. It's a pity that they were not qualified to participate in the palace banquet at that time, so they could only listen to gossip from their mother or mother-in-law at home, which seemed a little distorted. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 438. Fourth son, you are finally back. There are people from the palace who want to see you. Chi Heiran and the others were stopped by the steward just as they got out of the carriage. Chi Heiran and Mu Yangling looked at each other and said, you and sister-in-law go back first, I'll go and have a look. Mu Yangling nodded, watching him leave with some worry. Li Jinghua patted her hand and said, it's okay, let's go back and wait for the news. Mu Yangling supported Li Jinghua back to Zayed Hall. Chi Heiran came back soon, and said, the palace is sending a message, the three of us will go to the palace tomorrow. Why? Mu Yangling was puzzled. Brother, please seal it for sister-in-law. The palace may want to see sister-in-law. The two of us are going as a foil. Li Jinghua's eyes lit up, and she asked a little excitedly, your elder brother, please seal me. Chi Heiran grinned, yes, wife of the second grade, if the imperial seal comes down, no one in our family will be able to bully you in the future. Li Jinghua pursed her lips and smiled, and said with bright eyes, fourth uncle seems to be saying that I will bully people after I get the imperial seal. Sister-in-law can bully if she wants to, Chi Heiran said with a big wave of his hand, as long as you don't bully Aling. Li Jinghua couldn't help laughing, and looked at Mu Yangling playfully, but seeing that Mu Yangling was also grinning, with no shyness on his face, Li Jinghua could only shake his head and smile. When Chi Heiran and Mu Yangling went back holding hands, they said, why don't I seal it up for you too? I'm a fourth-rank man, so you're a respectful person. People, please seal her up and she will still occupy a false elder status. The more Chi Heiran talked, the more he felt that the imperial seal was a good thing, so after returning home, he lay down on the table and began to write the notebook, and decided to take it with him when he went to see the emperor tomorrow. Mu Yangling propped his chin to watch him write classical Chinese, admiring him, I read as many books as you do, why can't I write this tune? Chi Heiran proudly said, you just read the book once, can you compare with me? But I still have to write strategies and do my homework. After writing the booklet, the two talked happily for a while and then went to bed. Chi Heiran hugged Mu Yangling up and down, and regretfully said, your illness will get better soon. Mu Yangling pinched him, don't think about anything. Do you think the emperor will target me tomorrow? What if I can't restrain my temper? I've already thought about it for you. Just pretend to be gentle and smile with your head down. Isn't your sister-in-law here? Let her answer for you. Mu Yangling thought about it, and fell asleep in peace, but things are often out of control. Who would know that the protagonist of this summoning is not Li Jinghua, but Mu Yangling? In other words, it was Qi Ziyuan who was far away in Jingzhou Mansion. Through the news from the secret guard and a thorough analysis of the palace banquet, the emperor believed that Mu Yangling was a fool and bold. Otherwise, how could he say those words at the palace banquet? But after leaving the palace, he was so frightened that he fell ill. Don't doubt, when the doctor gave the pulse diagnosis, he said that Mu Yangling had an occasional cold and was frightened. It is too common to feel the wind and cold. Everyone subconsciously ignored it. Whether it was the emperor or the ministers, Mu Yangling's illness returned to the fear of heart. As a result, only the audience who were able to hear the rumors outside were misunderstood gorgeously. Some people are usually very timid, but they can always burst out with strong fighting power for the persistence in their hearts, but once they keep it, the opponent will immediately fight back to their original shape. The emperor was still not sure about the personalities of Mu Yangling and Li Jinghua, but Qi Heiran was sure. He looked carefree, but he spent a long time trying to get any questions from him, so he could only focus on the female relatives. General Yuan and Qi Ziyuan are both in the north, and they have a close relationship. They have more than 300,000 troops in total, and these 300,000 are elite soldiers who have seen blood, more than twice as powerful as the soldiers raised in the south. It can be said that their 300,000 is their 600,000, how can the emperor rest assured? I can't sleep well. The three separated after entering the palace. Mu Yangling and Li Jinghua went to the queen, while Qi Heiran was taken to see the emperor. The queen was very gentle, she knelt down and was called out, and then the three of them sat and chatted together. The queen asked Li Jinghua about the Jingzhou mansion in a sideways manner. Li Jinghua answered impeccably, only shook her head blankly when it came to military affairs, and then the house generally doesn't care about outside affairs. Even if the queen wants to ask, she can't ask. The queen felt a little helpless. It seemed that Li Jinghua was indeed taught by the family. Although she was young and had little experience, she was not much different from the daughters of the family who grew up in the capital. The queen turned her eyes to Mu Yangling, her heart moved, and she asked with a smile, I remember General Qi said that you rescued him in the mountains. How did you go to such a place? Mu Yangling looked up at Li Jinghua, and Li Jinghua smiled and said, Ma'am, the fourth sibling's family used to be hunters, so she often followed her father into the mountains to hunt. The queen smiled slightly, and asked again, how long have you known General Qi? Li Jinghua observed the words and expressions, and also saw what the queen meant. She couldn't help but sighed slightly, and looked at Mu Yangling. Her eyes rolled imperceptibly, and Mu Yangling knew that she had to deal with it. These questions did not seem to involve confidentiality, so Mu Yangling answered with a smile. In the end, the problem got deeper and deeper. Mu Yangling smiled heartlessly and told the queen that there are now 6 battalions in Xieying, with more than 100,000 people, and the food income is barely enough for food and clothing. The grain harvests in Jingzhou Mansion and Hanshong Mansion are not bad, but Xingzhou Mansion has been suffering from drought. Those military households, not to mention paying military rations, can't even support themselves. Brother Qi can't leave them alone. Brother Heiran felt distressed for several days when the military rations were transferred from the government and the Jingzhou government. Finally got some useful news, the queen ignored Li Jinghua who was getting nervous, and asked with a smile, isn't there not enough food, can you buy it with money? Isn't Xingzhou Mansion down to Tongchuan Mansion? It has always been a land of abundance, food the output is pretty high. Mu Yangling curled his lips and said, now Tongchuan Mansion can't even compare with Jingzhou Mansion. The queen was taken aback, and asked, why? Why not? The rebellion in Tongchuan Mansion just ended a few years ago. Although the rain was good last year, so many refugees were not resettled and no one was farming. No matter how fertile the land is, what good is the rain? These queens really don't know, isn't this the government affairs of the previous dynasty? How could Mu Yangling know? Is this what General Qi told you? Where should he say it? Everyone knows it, Mu Yangling said, as a matter of course, refugees always move here and there. Xinzhou Prefecture also has refugees from Tongchuan Prefecture. We will know when they talk about it. Is it that simple? The queen murmured. Mu Yangling asked curiously, how complicated can that be? The queen smiled and said, Tongchuan Mansion is not good. As long as you have money, there will always be grain merchants who will sell you grain, so you don't have to live so tight. Mu Yangling shook his head and said, they have no money, but they have a lot of jewelry. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Zhu. Chapter 439. Mu Yangling told the queen that Xieying was very poor. Brother Heiran's salary and monthly money are not enough at all. Sometimes he borrows from Brother Zijin, and sometimes he borrows from me, but he has a lot of jewelry and antiques, all of which are from wars. When I was married, I got a share, but those things were difficult to exchange for money. He took out one, but it was not sold, or the price was severely suppressed, so I was so poor. When we got married, most of the dowry gifts he gave me were those things were all seized by him and Brother Qi. There were almost no fashionable things. The only few bolts of better cloth were taken from Brother Zijin's shop. There was no silver or gold jewelry, all of them were precious stones. Heu and some wood and so on. The queen's heart beat violently, and said, Jingzhou Mansion is the ancient capital of the former dynasty, and it is also a place of prosperity. I don't know how many antiques they seized. They are all money. Mu Yangling laughed and said, Mother, why are you saying the same thing as my sister-in-law? It is true that you can't buy those things even if you have money, but the key is that no one is willing to buy them with money now. Those things can't be eaten, and they can't be eaten. The only thing left is to pass it on to future generations, but who knows if those things can be kept after fighting every now and then. How can those things be measured in money? The queen looked at Mu Yangling with contempt. A court lady behind him brought a cup of tea to the queen, and the queen came back to her senses, and said with a smile, Aling, coaxing me, even if those things can't be exchanged for money, it shouldn't be so poor that I need to borrow money from you, right? Mu Yangling complained, how is it impossible? Qi Heiran's salary and monthly money are not much, among other things, he likes precious knives and BMWs. A good horse costs nearly 1,000 taels of silver. The money and salary were all gone. Once he bought me a short dagger, which cost more than 400 taels of silver. He didn't have enough money, so he had to go and grab Wu Jin's money. For this matter, Wu's Hifa found Qi Brother Qi filed a complaint. Brother Qi hung him up and beat him for 2 days. Of course this is not the case. The fact is that when a large number of refugees flooded into Xinzhou Prefecture, Qi Ziyuan's recruitment made the army's rations urgent, and everyone had nothing to eat, but as long as it lasted for another 7 or 8 days, the grain in the field could be harvested. Qi Ziyuan was worrying about whether to use usury when borrowing money to buy grain. Qi Heiran directly led someone to borrow the grain depot in Xinzhou Mansion. When he went back, he happened to meet Wu Jin. He was afraid that he would cause a storm in the city by yelling, so he arrested Wu Jin as well. Then searched and found more than 400 taels of silver. The prefect Wu came to the door, and Qi Ziyuan promised to replenish the grain depot after the autumn harvest, but the grain that had been snatched back by his younger brother naturally went into the warehouse in Xieying. But of course the prefect Wu didn't agree, so let's forget it. Qi Ziyuan was forced to do nothing. This matter can be big or small. The small one, punishing his younger brother for robbing the grain depot, the lightest is exile. The big one, the Qi family, the whole family is involved. Fortunately, Magistrate Wu also knew that he would not get well if the incident got serious, so he could only hold back his anger and negotiate with Qi Ziyuan. In order to make him shut up, Qi Ziyuan had no choice but to hang Qi Heiran up and beat him up. In order to show punishment, he hung Qi Heiran for 2 days. Of course, this was in the impression of Wu Zhifu and others. The facts in fact are well, Chi Heiran was putting on clothes full of welts when Wu Zhifu came, and then smeared some rabbit blood on them. The reason is that Chi Heiran robbed Wu Jin of money. Then Chi Hao did use the money to buy a short dagger for him, but he didn't give it to Mu Yangling. He used it himself, and then saved the next month's money to buy a dagger for Mu Yangling. They live so poorly, aren't the soldiers in the barracks even poorer? Mu Yangling smiled and said, "Mother, how can the soldiers in the barracks compare with them? No matter how poor they are, what they wear is silk, and what they eat is mountain delicacies. There is enough meat. If you want to eat rice, you can eat rice, and if you want to eat white steamed buns, just eat white steamed buns," and the soldiers in the barracks wear military uniforms issued from above, and the private clothes are also patched and patched. As long as they are not broken, they can have a meat dish in 10 days, and they can have 2 pieces of meat in a meat dish. Very satisfied. The queen's eyes widened. Well, it's been such a hard life, where did the so much military pay from the court go? Li Jinghua, who was still holding a heart, had already let go of her heart. She sat on the side with her head lowered. Who said Mu Yangling was not smart? At least she performed better than her today. Spy on intelligence. How do they judge whether what Mu Yangling gave is true or false? This girl told the truth in 3 parts. If she didn't happen to know such a thing, I'm afraid she would have believed it. It would be fine if she could tell 70% of the truth about everything, but she is very shrewd. The 70% of the truth is irrelevant, and the most important 3 points are replaced with fake ones. The royal family only needs to check. I can find out a general idea, but I don't know the 3-point truth. With the previous statement as a basis, I am afraid that even the most suspicious people will believe 3-pointers. Li Jinghua felt relieved, but just gave her a secret look from time to time, so as to make the queen misunderstand. She didn't want Mu Yangling to say these things. Seeing Wai Wei, the queen turned sideways, and waved to Mu Yangling, "You know a lot, come to Bengong and tell." Mu Yangling stepped forward unrestrainedly, and the queen asked her to sit with her back to Li Jinghua, so that Li Jinghua couldn't see any winks from Mu Yangling. The imperial court pays a lot of military salaries every year, don't they? Didn't get it. The face of the emperor behind the screen sank, but Mu Yangling was overjoyed, shaking his head in confusion and said, "There is no military salary. My father used to be a small flag, and he never paid military salary. Only when there are hundreds of households can there be military salary, but it's very little, just 5 taels of silver a year." The queen frowned and said, "Did the higher ups embezzle it privately?" Mu Yangling tilted his head and thought for a while, then waved his hand indifferently and said, "Who knows, Chi Heiran has no share anyway, but his salary has not been deducted at all, and Brother Chi's has not been deducted at all, so the official university still has good thing, others dare not deduct their money. Without money, what about the armaments?" "I know that," Mu Yangling said enthusiastically, "the Xieying will come forward to buy some, and the rest will be handled by each battalion." The topic became more and more confidential. The queen laughed and said, "General Chi must be partial to General Chi. I heard that he loves this younger brother very much." "That's not true. The best armaments of the West Camp are sent to the 1st and 2nd battalions, because they are required to be the vanguard in every battle. Brother Heiran's 5th battalion is responsible for taking in the old, weak, sick, and disabled. To a 5th. The queen narrowed her eyes. "How do you know this? General Chi also told you?" "No, I knew it myself," Mu Yangling said, "as it should." "No one told you these things, how could you know?" The queen stared at Mu Yangling closely. Mu Yangling said with a smile, "Because I help him manage the accounts. Brother Heiran's 5th battalion was originally managed by Brother Zijin's logistics, but Brother Zijin wants to study and do business, so there is no time. Corruption is serious, and he was impatient to check the accounts, so he took the account books and asked me to help him do the calculations. I often go to the camp to look for him, so naturally I know. Ling, Li Jinghua looked at the queen with a pale face, and said apologetically, "Madam, I suddenly feel unwell, maybe the baby in my stomach is making a fuss. Ling, come and help me." Mu Yangling stepped forward to support her in a panic, and the maid who brought tea to the queen nodded her head imperceptibly, and the queen smiled and said, "Since you are not feeling well, let Ling take you to the side hall rest for a while, the imperial doctor will be here soon." The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 440. Mu Yangling helped Li Jinghua go to the side hall, and a person walked out from behind the screen. It was the emperor in bright yellow clothes. The queen stepped off the couch. "Your Majesty, what do you think? I'll have someone check it out and I'll know what she said is true." Looking at Li's flustered look, she probably isn't lying, the queen thought for a while, and said, "Your Majesty, Mu's eyes are pure, and she doesn't seem like a thoughtful person." The emperor nodded slightly. "The order to Li will be sent out tomorrow, and then some rewards will be given to their sisters-in-law. Don't worry about them until I find out." The queen complied with a smile. The emperor left from the other side to meet Qi Heiran in the imperial study. Li Jinghua held Mu Yangling's hand tightly. Mu Yangling looked anxious, but his fingers tapped her wrist twice in a hurry. Li Jinghua felt relieved. After the imperial doctor showed it to Li Jinghua and said it was all right, the palace lady came over and said to send the two of them away, because Li Jinghua was considered to be pregnant before, so she carried them around and sent them to the gate of the palace. Mu Yangling was very happy to help Li Jinghua up, and happily followed her out of the palace. The maids who came with her felt that she really had no worries. Qi Heiran was already waiting at the gate of the palace. Seeing that Li Jinghua was pushed out sitting and walking, he looked at her stomach worriedly. Mu Yangling jumped up and said, "Sister-in-law is fine, but nephew is disobedient. Making noise." Qi Heiran felt relieved, and took the person back after spreading out the bounty money. Mu Yangling and Li Jinghua were riding in a carriage, while Qi Heiran rode beside him. Halfway through the carriage, Li Jinghua let out a long breath, pointed at Mu Yangling's forehead and said, "I finally know why your big brother Qi always say you are brave. Let me watch you closely when I come to the capital. You are not so brave, you are so daring, you dare to say anything in front of her." Mu Yangling also let out a sigh of relief. "It's fortunate that you stopped me, sister-in-law. Otherwise, if I continue talking, I will be exposed. Even if I don't reveal so many confidential things at once, they must be suspicious." "Will they find out that you are lying?" Li Jinghua asked worriedly. "No," Mu Yangling said confidently, "going to check will only trust me more." Back in the mansion, Qi Heiran knew that Li Jinghua was pretending, so he was relieved, and then complained, "You can still talk to the queen for a long time, but I sat on the bench for a long time, and when I met the Holy Majesty, I only talked. It was dismissed after 2 sentences, but I handed over the notebook." Li Jinghua's heart moved. Isn't the emperor in the imperial study? In her mind, the 2 court ladies who came up to refill tea always made her feel weird. Did not go. But Mu Yangling asked happily, "You handed over the notebook, what did the emperor say?" Qi Heiran grinned, "The emperor just praised me and then accepted it. I think he will probably agree. If the emperor heard the sentence, he would definitely cry." He just laughed and scolded Qi Heiran, but Qi Heiran listened to it as a compliment. Li Jinghua didn't have time to think about the weirdness in her heart, and asked quickly, "What book did you write?" "Oh, it's nothing, please give Ling a copy of the imperial order." Li Jinghua looked at the 2 of them speechlessly. This was really impatient. She was married to Qi Ziyuan for 2 years before Qi Ziyuan asked her to be sealed. How long has it been since Mu Yangling married Qi Heiran? When Qi Ziyuan was in the 3rd grade, he asked his deceased biological mother to confer the imperial order. Although he is dead, there is still a glory. So when he and Li Jinghua got married, they wanted to wait until the new year was over. After all, the Ministry of Rituals couldn't be busy all the time, it would be annoying. But since Li Jinghua was called back, she had the status of imperial order, so it would be more convenient for her to do things, so Li Jinghua and the others were still on the way, and the note Qi Ziyuan asked to seal had already arrived at the emperor's imperial case. Generally, this kind of request would take about half a year no matter how fast it was, so they forgot it after they said it, and who knew that the imperial decree would come the next day. The whole family went out to receive the decree, and Li Jinghua honorably became the second-rank wife of the great Zhou dynasty on this day, and Mu Yangling's imperial order was also approved, and became a fourth-rank congregation. Following the imperial edict came some rewards from the queen, which were not worth much, but it was an honor, and the eyes of Wu and the others were red. The Wu family is also a royal order. When Qi Feng asked her for a seal, it took 3 years to get the approval. It was the Wu family who spent money to manage the ceremony. Because she didn't have a marriage certificate and there was no record in the Yamen, so even if the imperial order came down they didn't dare to celebrate wildly, so the two families could only sit together and secretly have fun. But Mrs. Li and Ms. Mu are too high profile. Wu Shi is so jealous, let alone Su and Xiao Wu. Qi Xiaosheng is only 1 year younger than Qi Ziyuan. He used to look down on Qi Ziyuan as a martial artist, but now that Qi Ziyuan is a second-rank feudal official, he is still just a recruiter. Qi Xiaosheng lowered his eyes, thinking of this year's Chunwei, he will pass the exam no matter what. Qi Xiaotai's face was even paler, and he stared at Qi Heiran almost viciously. He didn't have much talent for reading, and at the age of 20, he was only a scholar who passed the exam. He didn't pass the autumn of the year before last. Qi Heiran didn't care about them, and after receiving the imperial edict, he sent money to the servant who delivered the edict and sent them away. Order clothes and other things have to wait until the 7th day before someone will come to measure them. Qi Heiran did not expect the matter to be settled so quickly. To celebrate, he volunteered and said, "I will take you out to visit Linen Mansion, by the way celebrate." Before Mu Yangling could happily respond, Li Jinghua shook her head and said, "Qingshu's family of Dali Temple sent me a post, inviting me to attend the Plum Blossom Feast in their mansion. Aling, do you want to come with me?" Mu Yangling shook his head subconsciously. "I don't like this kind of banquet." After speaking, he looked at her stomach again. Li Jinghua quickly waved his hands and said, "Don't worry, Wen Kui and Wen Mian are following me. Since you don't want to go, you can go and play by yourself." Mu Yangling was silent for a while, and asked, "The Shu family, is it the Shu family who escaped from Jingzhou Mansion back then?" Li Jinghua smiled and said, "So you know, it is the Shu family, but Dali Temple Qingshuyang is a direct branch, and the one who escaped 16 years ago is a side branch, but they are doing well now, because they are both in Beijing. People from Zhaofu, that's why you posted me." Mu Yangling smiled and said, "Then sister-in-law, just go, come back and talk to me about the banquet. I'm impatient to participate in this kind of thing." Li Jinghua smiled and agreed. Qi Heiran pulled his wife back to the house, and asked, "This Shu family is not Shu's mother-in-law, right?" 80%. Qi Heiran looked at Mu Yangling carefully and asked, "Then, do you want me to help you find out?" "No," Mu Yangling waved his hand indifferently, "they better not recognize me, I don't want to have anything to do with them." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 441. Before Mu Yangling came, her father had told her that she should stay far away from the Shu family. It was probably the Shu family who prevented the Mu family from going south and had to be trapped in a military household. Mu Yangling could probably understand their thoughts. Her mother, Shu Wanyang, had already died in the Shu family. For the sake of the so-called face of the family, they naturally didn't want Shu Wanyang to have the chance to appear in front of others again. It's okay in the north, anyway, it's remote, and it's a border, no one will go there, so they can tolerate Shu Wanyang continuing to live, but going south is different. Mu Yangling didn't know whether they had been sending people to watch them all the time, or they knew about them by accident, but no matter what, at this moment, Mu Yangling didn't want to have anything to do with the Shu family, but the information that should be there is still you have to collect them well, otherwise what should you do if you do something stupid unintentionally? Li Jinghua is most familiar with this kind of banquet, but she doesn't need to take care of Mu Yangling, she is more comfortable, and her fetus has been firmly seated, and Mu Yangling and Qi Heiran have put down a lot of worries about her, so everyone will be together the next day. Divided into two groups, Li Jinghua went to attend her banquet, while Mu Yangling went shopping with Qi Heiran. She was wearing an agarwood-colored gold jacket with 10 brocade makeup and flowers all over her upper body, and a simple white pleated skirt on her lower body. Seeing that it was cold outside, she put on a white rabbit fur scarf. She shaved her eyebrows a little thinner, painted a little, then clapped her hands and said, "Fourth Grandma, you are so beautiful, your face is so pale and rosy, you don't need any rouge at all." Guyu leaned over to look at it, and said with a smile, "It's really pretty." Qi Heiran was taken aback when he saw Mu Yangling's attire, and then complained, "It's just a trip to the street, does it take so long to dress up? Okay, let's go with the cloak, Zijin must wait a long time gone. Didn't you say that you went shopping with me today? Why are you still called Shang Zijin? He opened a new restaurant, you are also a part of it. Of course you have to go and have a look." Qi Heiran took her hand out without hesitation. Manager Zhao saw the two of them, his face was wrinkled together, he came over with a bow. "Fourth master, all the carriages in the mansion have gone out, the grandma used one, the wife, the second grandma and the third grandma used two more, and there is one for the master, look." Qi Heiran waved his hand indifferently and said, "Forget it, let's go down, we don't need a carriage." Qi Heiran asked Fei Bai to bring his horse, got on the horse himself, hugged Mu Yangling and sat down in front of him. Mu Yangling complained in a low voice, "If I had known, I would have changed into lighter clothes instead of skirts gone. That way you don't have to sit sideways, and it's very hard to maintain this posture for a long time. It'll be there in a while, and we'll walk all the way when we get to the street. Linen Mansion is much more prosperous than Jingzhou Mansion." When the market opened after the year, many people went to the streets to have fun. When they entered the main street, the horses couldn't walk, and pedestrians also occupied the horse paths. Qi Heiran didn't chase them away, he just jumped off the horse and handed Mu Yangling to the next, and threw the horse to Fei Bai and the others behind him, and walked slowly while holding Mu Yangling's hand. Mu Yangling didn't think there was anything wrong with holding hands, and Qi Heiran didn't notice either, but everyone looked over curiously from time to time. Mu Yangling was keen, and glanced back at the two holding hands. When he understood, he went to the countryside to do as the Romans did. She patted his hand and said, "Let's go and see the Luzi in front." Qi Heiran followed closely behind, but compared to these gadgets, the two were more interested in eating, so they almost bought and ate all the way to Fan Zijin's newly opened restaurant, and both of them were full. Mu Yangling regretted, "What is the restaurant's main dish?" "Huaiyang cuisine." Mu Yangling felt even more heartbroken. "Huaiyang cuisine, do you have lion heads? If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have eaten so much." Qi Heiran chuckled, waved his hand and said, "We'll go back after dinner." Mu Yangling was instantly satisfied. When the shopkeeper saw the two, he immediately came up to meet them. He was transferred from Hanshong Mansion by Fan Zijin, and he knew that there were 3 owners in this restaurant. Mu Yangling looked around and saw that there were quite a few customers in the restaurant. 2/3 of the people were seated in the building, and the 2 followed the shopkeeper to the office in the backyard. When Fan Zijin saw the 2 of them, he put down the ledger and held his forehead with some headaches. Chi Heiran picked up all the books on his desk and stuffed them to Mu Yangling, saying, "Let Aling take care of these things." Fan Zijin raised his eyebrows. Chi Heiran said, "You should participate in this year's autumn. You can leave these things alone and go to the academy to study." Fan Zijin knocked on the table and said, "The shopkeepers are all familiar with the business of restaurants and dry goods stores. You only need to make some adjustments. It's fine to let Aling take care of it. Just check the accounts and come to me if you have any problems." Fan Zijin signaled Yanmo to find out the contract, and said, "It's still the old rule, these stores in Jiangnan also use our money, so the share is the same as before. The contract is here, you 2 sign it." Chi Heiran grabbed the pen and was about to sign it. Mu Yangling patted his hand, put away the contract and pushed it back. Fan Zijin looked at her in surprise. Mu Yangling said sternly, "We can't take this stuff. You have always been doing these businesses. Although we used the money we earned from doing business, to be honest, the money we got in the Northland also took up the money. You are cheap." Speaking of this, Mu Yangling is very embarrassed. At the beginning of the cooperation with Fan Zijin, it was true that she was at a disadvantage. The income was very little, but she had to pay a lot. But when Fan Zijin expanded the business, the income from rabbit breeding could only account for a small part of it, but Fan Zijin used those profits to expand the industry. In every industry, except restaurants, cloth shops, tea, and even Yanyan in Baidi, he has been involved. The annual dividends have long exceeded the income of her original investment plan. She's okay, at least she's worked hard, and Chi Heiran's side is completely free. No matter how thick-skinned Mu Yangling was, he was ashamed that the husband and wife both took advantage of Fan Zijin, and they ran to the south of the Yangtze River to take advantage of Fan Zijin after the northern land was occupied. Mu Yangling thought for a while, and said, "Jiangnan's business benefits are too great. You have invested so much effort, how can we still take advantage of you? So I think you should enjoy this profit exclusively." Fan Zijin was very ungrateful, and said unhappily, "This is the contract signed back then. It was agreed that as long as the business is expanded with the profit from our business, it will be shared. You treat me, Fan Zijin, as a dishonest villain." Chi Heiran was also very ungrateful. "That's right, Aling, our business has always been one, how can we separate now?" Mu Yangling was very angry at Chi Heiran's lack of self-consciousness. "Then you can't always take advantage of Zijin." Fan Zijin said angrily, "I am willing to let Heiran take advantage of me, what's wrong?" Chi Heiran also nodded fiercely, "Aling, Zijin doesn't care about this. I have taken advantage of him since I was a child. Anyway, he makes a lot of money. If you are sorry, we can return it when we make money in the future." Fan Zijin waved his hand and said, "You don't need to pay back the money, I'm happy to use my money for you." Mu Yangling looked at the 2 of them speechlessly. In the end, he became a villain himself after cooperating. After thinking about it, just take it and take it back. He can only return it when he has a chance in the future. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 442. Chi Heiran pulled Mu Yangling aside and said, "Although we are married, we can't have a relationship with Zijin." Mu Yangling said speechlessly, "Don't you feel uneasy if you take advantage of him?" Chi Heiran said blankly, "Why should I be uneasy?" Mu Yangling looked at him steadily for a while, and found that he was really confused, so he asked curiously, "If Zijin marries a wife in the future, what if his wife has objections?" "You underestimate Zijin too much, he is not someone who can be handled by women. That can't make them husband and wife because of their birth status. Zijin treats you so well, so you have to think about him. Chi Heiran said indifferently, if he proposes it, we won't take advantage of him. As long as he doesn't mention it, we will continue to take advantage of it. Mu Yangling instantly became suspicious of her vision. Did she actually choose a scumbag? She looked Chi Heiran up and down, but she didn't realize that he had this potential. Isn't this too deceitful for a brother? Seeing that she didn't speak, Chi Heiran thought she was still insisting, so he said seriously, Aling, listen to me, it will hurt his heart if you take the initiative not to take advantage of him. Mu Yangling opened his mouth wide, I'm still hurting him like this. Didn't you let us have a share? It's just a few advantages, and I will take advantage of it. I have taken advantage of him even more, not to mention, Chi Heiran said in a barely audible voice, from now on, all the money will be invested. We will take advantage of those who go to Xieying. Rather than quietly taking advantage of Zijin, it is better to take advantage of Zijin openly, at least in the end everyone will know that they owe Zijin, and it will be easier to ask for credit when rewarding Zijin in the future. Mu Yangling opened his mouth wide, then closed it again, finally nodded and said, well, I am short-sighted and narrow-minded. Chi Heiran raised his head proudly, and said in a flustered voice, even if there is nothing to do later, I can take advantage of Zijin's advantage if I want to. When the two came out, Fan Zijin was still angry with a straight face. Mu Yangling apologized against his low pressure, deeply reviewed his dirty thoughts, and expressed his apology for tarnishing the pure brotherhood between him and Chi Heiran. Never stop Chi Heiran from taking advantage of him. Fan Zijin's face looked better now, and he barely forgave her, but behind Mu Yangling's back, Fan Zijin said angrily, is your master that kind of stingy person? Chi Heiran bent over and shook his head repeatedly, no, my cousin is the most generous. She simply wanted to sow discord. Seeing that our brothers have a good relationship, she couldn't see it. Chi Heiran quickly shook his head and said, Aling is not such a person, she just thinks she always takes advantage of you, so she is embarrassed. Fan Zijin curled his lips in disdain, are you still taking advantage of me? When did I mind? That's right, I scolded her just now, and she will never dare to mention it again in the future, Chi Heiran said with righteous indignation. Fan Zijin looked at him suspiciously, did you scold her? Really? Of course it's true. She has sincerely admitted her mistake. Please forgive him, cousin. Only then did Fan Zijin notice Chi Heiran's address to him, curled his lips in disdain, sat on a chair, took a cup of tea and said, just blow it up, are you willing to scold her? Well, if you can scold her in front of me if she stops, I promise to forgive her. Chi Heiran was taken aback for a moment, then jumped up and said, how can you do this? Fan Zijin curled his lips, and the old god said, I knew you were coaxing me. If you don't scold her, I won't forgive you. Chi Heiran immediately said, I'll scold her again when I go back. How embarrassing would it be for her to scold her outside? It's okay, I don't mind her crying, Fan Zijin said. But I don't mind. Seeing Chi Heiran blushing, Fan Zijin finally dissipated the depression in his heart that had been provoked by his brother-in-law for many days. Sure enough, as long as he was unhappy, he could bully Chi Heiran. Fan Zijin waved his hand generously and said, okay, do what you need to do. Let Aling come over to check once every 3 days, and check the accounts once every 10 days. After 15 days, I'll go to the academy and start studying in seclusion. Fan Zijin sneered and said, I really thought he would be able to ride on me if I wasn't in Linen Mansion for a few years. Upon hearing this, Chi Heiran immediately asked, did Fan Zixiao bully you again? I'll help you teach him a lesson. Fan Zijin waved his hand and said, can he bully me? But it's really annoying to be jumping around all the time, so I happened to move out while I was studying in the academy. If it was the past, Fan Zijin would have insisted on living in the Fan Mansion even if it looked disgusting. If he had a hard time, others would never want to be comfortable, but when he came back, his big cousin's ambitions would continue to emerge in his mind. His world is so vast, why should he care about those few people? Wasting time on those people? So this time, Fan Zijan decided to move out, so that he could live a more comfortable life and allow himself to devote more energy and time to his own affairs. Fan Zijan asked in a low voice, "Didn't the eldest cousin give you a mission? You can't just play for fun." Chi Heiran promised, "Don't worry, I've already started working on it. If I don't play around, I really can't start it." That's true, Chi Heiran just came back, there are still many people staring at him, it's a bit difficult to do any movements at this time, so he can only walk around by playing. The two discussed some things before going out. Mu Yangling had already flipped through half of the account book, and closed the booklet when the two of them came out. He was a little embarrassed when facing Fan Zijan, but Fan Zijan waved his hand indifferently and said, "For the next year, the business in Jiangnan will be entrusted to my younger siblings." 1 year? Isn't it enough until the end of Kaiwei? Fan Zijan looked at her contemptuously, "The spring will be after the autumn, do you think I will have time to take care of these things?" "Naturally, I will take care of them until the end of the spring next year." Mu Yangling couldn't help but said, "Are you so confident that you will definitely have Chunwei next year?" Fan Zijan didn't bother to answer. Mu Yangling was about to be defeated by their arrogance, and the two cousins were surprisingly similar in this regard. Fan Zijan said, "The spring festival will be held together for 2 years. I am afraid that the Linen Mansion will be very lively this year and next. Don't you want to buy land? You can look for it now, maybe you can find a good one. If you want to buy more, go find it again after the end of the spring, maybe there will be surprises." "Why before and after the spring?" Fan Zijan showed his white teeth, and said, "Because before and after the spring festival, many candidates need to make connections. There are always students from Linen Prefecture who don't have enough money and need to sell land to raise money." Mu Yangling was taken aback for a moment, then nodded thoughtfully, and asked, "Will anyone sell test questions?" Fan Zijan rolled his eyes and looked at Chi Heiran. Chi Heiran hurriedly explained, "Aling, this is a fraud, once it appears, there will be corpses all over the place, don't talk nonsense, they will just pay to find out who the examiner is, then spend a lot of money to read his previous articles and strategies.